Hey YouTube friends, I'm back. Today we're gonna talk about a little setup that I tested on my project in Germany. I incorporate my computer and tape, couple of synths in a really handy way, I think. So I want to share that. So let's dive into it and see how it works. Okay, so I will try to explain my setup. Let me first explain the MIDI routing. So this is the only keys that I have here, of course. So I'm using this as my MIDI keyboard. So the MIDI out from the monologue goes into my DAW through a sound card, and the MIDI out of the sound card goes into the Digitakt. So basically what I do is have the Digitakt as the main sequencer for making loops. So the MIDI out of the Digitakt goes into the Digitone. The Digitone MIDI through goes to the Parva, and the MIDI through of the Parva goes into the monologue. That way everything is controlled from the Digitakt with the DAW in between the MIDI keyboard. So with the Digitakt as like my main sequencer hub, channels 1 through 8 of course are internally used by the Digitakt, and the rest of the channels I can program to control the Digitone, the Parva and the monologue, for example. And the way I do that is to, for example, I put all the MIDI channels of the Digitone on, or all the tracks on MIDI channel 9, 10, 11 and 12. So now this one's active, and on track 14 I routed it to channel 10, so this is track 2 of the Digitone. So the only thing I then need to do is set my DAW, the MIDI which it sends out, to track 14. So I will control then the Digitakt on channel 14, and that will reroute it to channel 10 in the chain to play this one. But I can also just use the internal sequencer of the Digitone, of course. Unfortunately, my Parva broke down just before I wanted to record this, so I don't know, it's just not turning on. This was on channel 13, so I could just on one of the tracks put it on 13, and then I can control it with this, record it or in the Digitakt as a pattern, or I can record it in the DAW on a MIDI track. What else? Yeah, I can, if I press play on the in Ableton, everything runs, but I can also just press play on the Digitakt and everything works as well. So it's really flexible in all the ways I can control stuff, and this is only the MIDI part. The only thing that's a bit weird is that if I play MIDI notes on the monologue, I have to turn off the master volume, because otherwise you always hear the monologue. Okay, now for the audio routing. The audio of the monologue goes into one of the inputs of the Digitakt, and I have the monitoring on, so basically it gets one input, keeps it mono, ideal for the monologue, and it just passes it through. And both the left and the right stereo output of the Digitakt goes into the two first inputs of the Tascam. Yeah, so I can mix that here. The Parva out goes into the Digitone in, so I can mix it in the master settings here, maybe put some effect on it if I want to. And the main left and right out of the Digitone goes into the 3 and 4 of the Tascam. So basically I have a mixer then for 4 tracks. I can put stereo stuff on both of them, or I can record mono by panning it left or right. I can actually make a beat and record it 4 tracks on the Tascam if I want to. But the cool thing is that I routed the outputs of Tascam back into my computer's input. So what I can also do is multi-track it into my DAW in Ableton really easy. So I can just turn all the volumes off and only record, for example, the monologue. And the next round I turn this volume off and I turn the beat on and I only record the Digitakt, and so I can make really quick a multi-track recording on the DAW with the flexibility of always also that I can also record on the Tascam itself. It all depends on the project I'm doing. I found this with this little setup, I found it to be really useful to have all these different options available without repatching stuff. Yeah, I also have some effect units. I can put it in between every synth, or I can use it as a effect send on the Tascam, and of course I have to reroute then. But the main wires are just intact and I can use this setup in multiple ways. Yeah, and I was always I used Ableton mostly as like an edit program for editing audio basically, and I always stayed away from it to using it in my real studio. And this experience in Germany with this flexible setup, I'm going to rethink about maybe using the computer in my normal studio setup like everyone's doing since the 90s, I guess. But yeah, it never really clicked for me working with a computer, and maybe I now finally found a way to incorporate it easy, and yeah, gives me all the benefits of having the computer there as well. So I hope you found this useful. I was really surprised that I really like this setup, so I will definitely gonna experiment with this in my small studio but also in my bigger studio. Yeah, I'm back, so I will make new videos every week, and for you to enjoy, and for me to enjoy as well, of course. So I will see you in the next video. Bye. Boom.